GPT.
Love it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my co-host, Mr. Shawn Francis. I am Brian Altunian. Today, we're talking about self-care. Apparently, for me, I needed to have a little computer self-care. Sorry about the delay getting started here, but it's just the two of us, no guests today, but a conversation worth having for sure. So, hang with us as we have another great and exciting episode of Just Two Dads. Hey, everybody. If you're catching us another episode of Just Two Dads, I am Brian Altunian along with Shawn Francis. And if you're catching us on our Facebook Live page, welcome. Thank you. Leave some comments. I don't like this virtual background. It's funky. Leave us some comments. Feel free to let us know if there's something that we can talk about. If you're catching us after the fact on our YouTube channel, welcome. Please hit subscribe and share. Help us build that awareness. We've added a bunch of subscribers this week, and we're really excited about that. And if you're catching us on podcast outlets everywhere and on WSTX AM radio down in U.S. Virgin Islands, thank you for making us part of your listening day. We're going to get right into it because we are excited to be talking about this subject of self-care. So as we get ready to talk about that, I'm just going to throw it over to Shawn Francis, ask how you doing, buddy, and let's get rolling.
I am doing great. I think I'm thankful and I'm blessed for us to have this platform to be able to reach out and to remind people that they're not alone. And then at the same time, it's interesting. I haven't spoken with most people that have podcasts or shows to ever ask them if they feel like they are as much an audience member as they are a host. I feel like the creation of the show kind of came to us as opposed to us going to it. And I feel like lots of times it's, I'm doing both. And so the topics that we have and the people that we have conversations with are people that are familiar with things that are important to us. And so I don't know how good I am at self-care. And so I'll get back to that, but let me ask you, because it's more important for those of us that are caregivers to those with special needs. But the definition is still the same. So let me ask you, what comes to mind when you think self-care?
Well, I think it's a matter of pausing your daily activity or your activity to enclose, if you will, to actually give yourself a space to heal, to be aware, to, meditate, to tap into higher source. Sometimes self-care is physical. A lot of times it's mental, psychological. Sometimes it's repairing the soul. And self-care to me comes in a lot of different forms. I can go have lunch with somebody that I really enjoy, that feeds my soul, and that's self-care. That's a version of self-care to me.
Yeah, definitely. So what I did is I took the opportunity to have just a brief conversation with a friend of mine by the name of ChatGPT and just ask, well, what do you think, O Oracle of the day? And
yes.
The answer is as follows. Self-care refers to the practice of taking deliberate actions to prioritize and maintain one's physical, mental, and emotional well-being. It involves activities and habits that promote health, reduce stress, and enhance overall quality of life. Self-care can encompass a wide range of activities such as exercise, meditation, relaxation techniques, healthy eating, and virtually everything that Brian just said. It also says the specific self-care activities can vary from person to person, but the key is to regularly, and I think the operative word there is regularly, engage in practices that nurture and rejuvenate your mind and body. So 2 things to unpack there, at least the 2 most obvious things, which is, everyone, make sure that you associate with people who are so smart that you don't even need ChatGPT. That's what I did. That's why Brian's my friend. Number 1. Number 2, when I look at the operative word, regularly, and this goes back to my initial statement where I said, I don't know how good I am at self-care. And I feel like it can be either one. Here's the reason why. If I'm in pursuit of a goal, people talk about celebrating small and big wins along the way. My problem, one of them, is that I'm easily distracted and I like to celebrate the smallest win along the way. And I can just be like, that was good. Our goal is 50, whatever. Unless it's something like, I don't know, push-ups or something. I'm not going to stop till I'm done. And so sometimes I think I might be too good or good to my own detriment at quote unquote self-care, because I also get enjoyment out of like the smallest things. Like my wife Laura will say sometimes, my brother cracks up about this. She'll be like, "You're so easily amused."
Yeah.
And sometimes, and once upon a time, I would be like, well, "What does that mean?" And I might be even like offended by it or something. But it's actually a goal, as long as I'm not, too distracted or it prevents me from being the best person I can be. Let me go ahead and get the most joy out of the smallest things. You were going to say something, and I was going to share another.
I actually was just sort of laughing at what you're saying, but because I think it's good to be easily amused. I think that's a funny, it's funny coming because if you can find humor in even the smallest things, your perspective is a lot more, like you always say, right? Childlike and not childish, right? It's very childlike. If you can find, listen, we sometimes laugh when somebody trips over the sidewalk and then it starts running like they meant to do it. We laugh at that kind of stuff, even though, it could have been detrimental to somebody.
I told my brother this morning, I called him rather than texted him. I said, "You're responsible for it taking an extra, you kept me up for an extra 15 minutes last night when I was trying to go to sleep." He's like, "Really? How's that?" And there was a phrase that he said once that I will not repeat here that just cracked me up years ago. And I was thinking of it, and for the 15 minutes that I thought of it, I was just like laughing like into the pillow because I didn't want to like wake anybody up. And I could not, and it was very juvenile, but it brought joy. And it also makes me think about, there's an article that I saved by Charlie Munger, who is, I believe, 90 years old.
Yeah.
And he says, if someone like me who's near death can find things to be optimistic about, anybody can. And so, they say that a lot of, happiness has to do with, and the way we age is about having something to look forward to. But the other thing I was going to say is, the other question I asked our good friend, ChatGPT, was, why is self-care important to caregivers, to those with special needs?
Wait, I want you to answer that, but just want to go back one quick second. So you know that Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's business partner. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger together started Berkshire Hathaway. So we're talking about a guy who's very straight-laced and very by the book and, numbers checking off the, crossing T's and dotting I's and stuff like that. So he's not like somebody who's just, some of our woo-woo, folks. He's like, so the fact that comment that he made, I think is that says a lot, right? Because even that guy who's all about, business and particularly American business, to have that kind of that conversation is great. So anyways, I just wanted to footnote what you had said.
And it's funny because the things overlap, because I think, like, for instance, you and I have been having this conversation, a lot lately. I've been looking at these, not even reruns, but streaming on Amazon Prime, is the television series Mannix. When I was a kid, that was one of the first shows that I liked at all. And it was for two reasons. One, it was a detective show. The lead character was just cool. He cared about people, stuck his neck out for anyone that could not stand to see wrong being done, drove a cool car, and always had the pretty girl, and guys wanted to be in, women wanted to be with him. But then at the same time, his secretary was a black female character, and there weren't that many people on TV that looked like me. And I grew up in a society in the Virgin Islands where most people looked like me. So I didn't even realize what that meant. And so I'm looking at that, and when you look at stuff like that, that's, a little older, your favorite food, your favorite something, especially if maybe it's a restaurant or something like that, doesn't exist anymore. If you're not careful, you can get into the whole, like, man, the good old days, just, and then there comes the question that you don't even ask yourself, but more or less make a statement about, which is like, what do I look forward to today? And having something to look forward to is a form of self-care, because the world in which we live in many ways is so ugly that there's a lot of things to be really, less than optimistic about. But at the same time, and I'm all over the place as I usually am. I'm reading a book right now that I wanted to get for a while and finally got around to it, which is oh my gosh, I hope I'm getting it right. I think it's a Life Source. It's Life Source. It's by Tony Robbins. And what it talks about is one of the co-authors and the contributors is a guy by the name of Peter Diamandis, who is just a genius on several different levels. And what they're talking about is taking responsibility for your health, not allowing someone with a degree, a doctor per se, to kind of, just dictate what you do. And that all falls into both self-care and having something to look forward to, because Diamandis is saying that for every 6 months, for every year that you live, technologically speaking, you should be able to add 6 months to your life expectancy. The type of things and breakthroughs that they're making, and so that's something to look forward to. And so if we take advantage of our own self-care and, and all these things that they're talking about, all of those things play a role, and it's just very, very interesting. And I found myself finding things to really look forward to, because for a while I was kind of like, gee, it seems like the good old days, like so many things are, what's so great about today? And it's a question, not despair. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I was stopped in my tracks about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when I was asked the question, what are you looking forward to? And so it's interesting because that question has a different answer at different times in your life. Like, for some people, as they're working, like, I look forward to retirement, or I look forward to, my kids getting, growing up and moving out. Some kid would say, I'm looking forward to, to having a retirement home or a vacation home somewhere.
Right.
But I also think that, and so for me, just this conversation, and I have to be careful how I phrase it. I was not admonished, but I was told I need to be careful on how I phrase it. But, I've had a lot of loss in my life in the last 3 months, between losing my mom, cousin, close friend's wife, and, and a couple of others that were little extended. And it honestly made me feel, and I've been using this word to describe it because it's the only word that I can think of.
Oh, I know where you're going, but go ahead.
I've been feeling adrift.
Yeah.
I've been feeling adrift. And because, and then I recently had a conversation, I think yesterday, as a matter of fact, where one of my dear friends said to me, it's not really loss if you look at it like all the memories you have are really a blessing, and they're, you're cherishing that you get to relive and re-cherish those moments of happiness and joy again. So the loss is that you won't have new ones, but the reality is that things do move on. And I was just for me. Oh, by the way, there's an alert going to be going out today.
I forgot that was supposed to take place today. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So, look at that. I'm going to turn into a zombie now. Nope. Anyways, so in that stage of feeling adrift, I was asked the question, tell me, what are you looking forward to right now? And honestly, Shawn, I was like, I don't know. Like I feel like I have to rethink what I'm looking forward to, because
it's worthwhile. You got to.
Yeah. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to, to visit my biological father, who's ailing and don't know how much longer he has. And so when you start to lose your parents and you start to think about who's next kind of thing, you kind of think like, okay, well, I've been working so hard and doing so many things and involved in so many things that do fill my soul, but like what now? Like, is it changed? Right? Is my situation changed? And so what am I looking forward to? And now I don't really know the answer to that question. And it actually made me realize that as our loved ones transition out of this physical world, for those that are left behind, we also go through our own transition. And so for me, I'm kind of in that transition mode too, where I'm trying to think about what I do. What do I want to have in my relationships? What kind of relationships do I want to have with my children, with my loved ones, with my friends, with the groups that I participate in? And it, to some degree, it feels like a little bit of inertia. And so that I want to stop on that point. And then it does translate and relate to the idea what you were going to bring up, which is ChatGPT's perspective on self-care for caregivers. But just before we get to that, I just give you a chance to respond, because again, you also have had loss lately, and so you have your own experience of that. How has it been for you?
It's interesting. I put it this way. I know that there's three of the things that I've come to realize that I really need is I need the people that are in my life that I love the most, like my family. It's just everything, and that includes you, because not all family. With some family, the only thing you have in common with your blood is that it's the same color, right?
Yeah.
So you don't get to. You don't. Family is everything, but it was something I came up with the other day that I thought was kind of clever. I think I said something like, "Family isn't everything, but everything isn't always family." So it depends, because some of your family are like, the fact that we're related is a bonus, because if I could choose my family, I would pick you every day of the week. And then there's some family members that you wouldn't necessarily choose. And most of my family, I would choose. So I need that. And I need something I do need something to look forward to, because I've had I feel like a blessed life. Like sometimes I look up and I think aloud to God. I'm like, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way and think that I've thought of like harming myself or anything like that. Not at all. What I've think about is the time that I've wasted with the gift that I've been given, and be like, why do you still have me here? Like, I'm just like, man, if I and because it takes so little for me to get self-care, I'm kind of like, this ice cream, this TV show, whatever, put my feet up and just woohoo. When I was a kid, I think I would tell people, my dad would tell me things like, you have a cartoon mentality. Everything is a joke, and blah, life is serious. And I would be like, yeah, I'm 10. I'm trying to watch Scooby-Doo. Why are you trying to tell me that every day we're closer to dying? But the things that he was telling me then, those are the things we talk about now. We can spend forever on the phone talking about it. And so the idea of having something to look forward to, I need that desperately. And I think I found it. And so my answer to you too is, when we look at loss, I'm blessed to have both of my parents still, but to say that I have thought about their departure as well as my own, to say that I have not would be a lie. And I think the first form of self-care, or if you're looking for something to look forward to, it can turn into self-care, because the first thing is like, well, what is it that's going to give me joy? And then I can do what I call treating it like Christmas. Okay, because regardless of your religious belief, the idea of Christmas, or any holiday for that matter, which comes but once a year, part of the value in all those great things is that it takes place once a year. I just saw this post earlier today from one of my all-time heroes, Kobe Bryant. He was talking about how he took a trip with his wife, Vanessa, to France after the Lakers were eliminated in 2008 by the Celtics. And he said it was beautiful, the country and the flowers and everything. And he stopped and looked at the sun and thought, and thought that the son, and maybe I'm feeling this way because he's no longer with us, but I sent it. I have a group text with my a dear friend and my brother, and he was just like responded how it just had him in tears. But Kobe said, you know, he learned from the son about being a better leader, because he's like, the sun makes the flowers and everything beautiful. It's the reason why they're beautiful. But the sun knows when to step back and go away and not be seen. If there's too much of it, it becomes dangerous. So he says, when you look on the court and you see, you know, Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom, they're not better players because Kobe Bryant's made them better. He said they're better because he stepped back and they're better on their own in given moments. So everything has a season, a reason, and its moment. And so if you can find something to look forward to that fulfills you, especially in a given moment, right? And it doesn't distract you from anything else that allows you to contribute to others or show your gratitude, or remain active physically, emotionally, and or spiritually. And then you can come back to that which you're looking forward to goes up in value when it's only for a time anyway. Yeah, mine is behind.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
I'm already zombified. I'm not sure what's happening for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that was with me.
You know, it's funny because I had lunch with a friend a few weeks ago, and we were talking, and she asked me a question. I remember going to this point of being adrift. You know, I don't tell everybody that. I feel lost or I feel disconnected. So what I realized in the moment, and reflected on it afterwards too, is that she provided me a safe space to be able to say that. Because you can't tell everybody certain things. You just can't tell everybody.
Let me ask you something. Yeah. How much of any of that do you think has to do with being a man?
Well, I think a restrictive conversation definitely is tied to being a man, because, we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be, have our shit together, and we're supposed to be, we're supposed to have all the answers, or at least we think we have to have all the answers. If we see something wrong, we want to fix things. We think we have the answers, but
right.
You and I are different because we share our emotions, frequently. Right. But I still don't with everybody. Thank you. Pleasure. Good to see you, buddy. When you can be vulnerable, in fact, for me, I've realized that the more vulnerability you're able to share, the stronger a person you are. Like there's something about your character. And listen, I've been like you, going back to old reruns of stuff. I'm binging Suits again, in Suits, about the lawyer show. There are two themes in that show that stick out for me. One is abandonment. That's a completely different conversation, Shawn. But one's abandonment, and the other is vulnerability. And I think that you can be the hardest ass person or the strongest mindset and everything, but if you can show some vulnerability, I think it adds to your character. I think it shows that you've got, first of all, enough self-confidence that you're able to be vulnerable and open up and share. And I just think it's self-reflective, and so that answers your question. But I will just to go back to this. I had this conversation and I said, and I was very vulnerable in that conversation because of where I was. And by the way, this is somebody who I've had a friendship with, but I just, you can tell in your soul, I believe, the kind of people that you can share your sort of deeper thoughts with. And I said to her at the time, like, I seek out relationships, friendships, business partners, colleagues that feed my soul, that fill my cup up.
Right.
And I think that when we feel out of sorts and we feel, crappy about something, one thing or another, I think it's because our cup is empty, and it's not empathy, right? It's not being empathetic or an empathic. It's really
Right.
about your soul, which is tied to your true self, right? We talk
Right.
about your true self all the time here. And so when you're feeling off, there's a lack of integrity because your true self is off. Something is off, and you in many ways it's just your soul is empty. So and sometimes when we have toxic relationships, that's just constant drain of your soul, right? It's a constant drain of energy. It's a constant drain of so you want to remove, in my opinion, you move toxic people out, toxic relationships out, toxic
Right.
environments out of your life, and replace them with those that give you the space to be vulnerable and that refill your cup.
Well, you don't want to. You want to have relationships with people with whom you can exchange energy, as opposed to not only just
For
have
sure.
them drain yours, but well-meaning people in certain moments you can find yourself, if you're conscious enough about it, being an energy drainer to someone else as well. Not through intention,
Yeah.
but let's look at what Chat GPT says about why
Yeah.
that's important to those of us who are caregivers, to those with special needs. And so it talks about several things, which is the physical and mental well-being, number one. So caregiving obviously can be physically and emotionally demanding, and neglecting self-care can obviously lead to burnout and exhaustion. And um we have a men's group, and we'll put the link up, called the Den. It's a support group for men who are caregivers or dads to those with special needs. And the conversation that we had in our last, I think it was our last gathering, came about from a question that a mother asked me as I was picking up my son from school. It was on a Friday, and she says, "So it's Friday. Yeah, you looking forward to the weekend, or do you even look forward to the weekend?" And as I stopped for a second, as it hit me, I knew exactly why she was asking that. But she went out to explain, and she said, "Because for us," and this is a woman who is a single mom, um, divorced, has more than one child, and so it made me stop and think, gosh, do you look forward to the weekend? And for each parent or each caregiver, it's different depending on what kind of support system, if any, you have, what the diagnosis might be. So when you come to the first item, according to Chat GPT, the physical and mental well-being, it's easy for that to get worn down. And it goes back to the analogy that is used so often, which is like, look, if a plane is having turbulence and the experiencing turbulence and the oxygen mask comes down, resist the urge to put your child's mask on first. Put yours on, because you're only going to be able to help them out, but so much if you end up passing out. So, a drowning man is not going to be helped by someone that can't swim. So the next item they then talk about is then resilience. So self-care enhances one's resilience. Our good friend Jessica Pate, whose organization is called We Are Brave Together, the last time she was with us, she talked about how she was never one of those moms who felt like, I need to sacrifice everything for my child to my detriment. As a matter of fact, I need to be, and these aren't her words, these are mine, based on the way she described it, is that it is worthwhile to be, there's a certain amount of selflessness that is exhibited through timely selfishness. So, and that came about when she talked about the fact that she took a vacation, without her son. She and her husband, they had a caregiver that they trusted and everything, but they needed to be able to do that for themselves, to then come back and let him know that, look, we'll take a trip with you, at a separate time, because it's just, you think of the caregiver, but the self-care extends to the children that don't have a diagnosis. And that's something that, you might not think of. And then it goes back to the next item, goes to exactly what I just said, improve care. So, an athlete, a boxer in a fighting with a broken arm is less likely to win if he's, than he is if he's got two healthy arms. So by the same token, the level of care that you give, if you're less than 100%, no matter what your mentality is not going to be the same as it would be if you're closer to 100% and refreshed. And then, the other thing it does in terms of self-care is it prevents isolation, because I think the isolation mindset comes into play when we get to thinking that nobody knows my situation, nobody knows, nobody understands. And if you're not even seeking out others that might have empathy for you, or might even be able to relate or be in the same exact situation. How can you find them if you're unless you get the blessing of it falling into your lap? In most cases, if you don't seek them out, you wouldn't even know.
Yeah, I know. But for some people, all of those things, if implemented, could be a form of self-care. Like,
they are. Yes.
There's sometimes when I want to just shut off and not do anything, and that is me being responsive to my body, to my mind, to my to my heart, and just like shutting down and staying isolated,
Right.
so that I can get the rest and the replenishment that I need. So I mean, I hear what you're saying, and by the way, it's Chat GPT, so it's cold information from from the universe, but right. I am from the universe of technology, anyways. But I mean, I think that, again, to your point, self-care for caregivers is really critical because of that idea of putting your mask on first. You can't be the best advocate for your loved one. You can't be out there for your loved one if you're not taking care of yourself. Absolutely. So it is. I get it. It does make a lot of sense. And again, depending on time of day, day of the week, area, time of the month, we can have this conversation, and I can be totally in that space of, the Ed Milet, Joe Dispenza kind of space of like, go be the best version of yourself and always focus on it. And then there were times that I'm like, just grinding it out, trying to, get to the next stage. So I think that the best thing that we all can do is spend that time to be self-reflective, and be cognizant of what your mind, body, soul are telling you. And sometimes you don't even know. I will tell you yesterday, and I don't even think I told you this yet, Shawn. I'm house sitting for some friends this week. They're out of the state for a while, and they've got these wood floors, and they've got a wooden staircase, and it was freezing in the house. I'm wearing my socks, and I was going. I had some stuff to do. I was doing a lot of stuff,
slipped.
And I was on the phone with a business partner, and I missed the second to last step, and I fell, and I was in so much pain. First of all, I thought I was going to throw up from the pain, because that can tell you how much. And by the way, I couldn't sleep last night because I can't lean on it. There's no bruise, so I'm sure I bruised a bone. I didn't break anything because I can walk, but it was definitely the universe telling me, slow the hell down, right? Because I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't paying attention to some of the basics, like walking. I wasn't paying attention to kind of my surroundings, what was going on. I was go, go, go. And so in a way I realized after the fact, I needed to slow down. And I was having this conversation with one of my dear friends yesterday. And she was saying that, when you get anxious or upset about missing a stoplight or getting late to get into the car and get on the road or wherever you're going, we get so frustrated with that. But we never know that that's not the universe protecting us from something really bad happening down the road. Or, so it could be, it could be part of a master plan. I don't know if it's part of a master plan, but we never know.
Right.
If we start to pay attention to the idea that we are energetic beings occupying human form, and that we're all part of this connected universe, that there could be play here, that if we started to pay attention to look at, which goes right to self-care, because those moments where you're like, man, I am so wiped out, but if I don't get this thing done, I don't know what's going to happen, right? And our minds go negative to all of the thousands of negative, infinite number of negative things that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
Or if we take a moment, take the breath, take care of ourselves, the infinite number of positive things that could happen come into our awareness. And so again, I think that we are, that we have this idea that, we're doing something, or we need to be reflective and again, self-aware. And for those who are listening, Laura DeMello, who I love dearly, she's the executive director of We Are Brave Together. She's saying on the website, they have a great PDF called Bite Size Self-Care, 60 suggestions for short self-care ideas that are very impactful. Thank you, Laura, for putting that on there. And we'll try to get that connected here in the show notes. But if you guys go to wearebravetogether.org, I think you'll find, by the way, that is a phenomenal organization dedicated to care for caregiving moms. And by the way, they're in 24 countries. In every state, they've got 2,400 members, and they do retreats, and they focus a lot on this subject of self-care for caregiving moms. We as dads acknowledge, first of all, we have a support group as well called The Den, but we also acknowledge that dads need to do self-care as well. Dads need to focus on their needs in order to be able to fulfill the needs of their family. So, thank you for putting that on there, Laura, and anybody who's doing something in the, creating support for other folks that are caregivers, doing God's work, because there are resources for people to go to. So anyways, just want to
most definitely. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I put the link for the kit for We Are Brave on the screen right there. And then in addition, and we'll have it again before we're over, the link for the Den as well, our men's group, the forums. You're talking about, self-awareness. I always talk about raising consciousness. Most of us don't have any idea who we really, really, truly are. Most of us have too big a gap between who we really are and who we think we're supposed to be, or who certain people might want us to be. And the more acquainted we are with our true selves, the easier it is to really administer that self-care, because the further away you are from who you truly are, the less likely you are to be honest with yourself about what it is that you even need. And if you think about the things that we do on autopilot, you don't even realize, just how things affect us. Why am I even thinking this way? So when we talk about questions being more powerful than statements, being more childlike and less childish, most people that hear that probably think what that means is when you meet someone, ask questions. Respectfully ask them questions. If you ask them directly, ask them within yourself. But it's just as if not more important to ask questions about yourself, because you don't even really think about that. And that's one of the, and that's one of the gifts of being a caregiver, to Elijah. I think that my wife Laura and I think I've sort of bridged the gap between us. The gap I'm referring to is that, for the most part, she's been better at the question, in terms of, well, who knows? Let's try. Let's see. You never know. Maybe he will try that. For a long time, I was more like, no, we don't. That he doesn't do that. He just no. As opposed to, I have no idea. And you roll the dice and you kind of find out. So you have to do the same thing with yourself. And the better you understand yourself, the more you can also be clear about what it is you really truly need. And when it comes to your self-care, it isn't anything to be ashamed of. And I've seen posts in certain forums and support groups and things like that on social media where people desperately need to be reminded that they're not alone. And in some cases, there are things that I can't relate to. I don't know what it's like. I've seen people post things like, we went through our third TV this year because their child had, a meltdown and broke the TV or something like that, or destroyed the house or whatever. That's, I don't know what that's like to that extent.
Yeah.
We've had minor things that have, that have taken place. But not like that, and certainly not on a regular basis. And that's why we always have to we have to remain curious about other people, curious about our surroundings, and more importantly, curious about ourselves. And that concept alone might seem weird because people, what I need to be curious about myself. I know who I am. But, do you really? Do you really? That's the question.
I do a lot of mentorship like activities. On Monday night, I was at my old fraternity at UCLA. We had an alumni event. It's a rush week for the fall, and so a bunch of alums got together to show that there's continuity for these kids who are in college today, a continuum between, them and those of us who were in the fraternity 40 years ago when we were in school. And I get the question a lot when people when I'm having a really bad day and shit's just not going my way, excuse me for cussing, things aren't going my way. And I don't know what to do. Like, how do you pull yourself out of those things? And so I always say the same thing to everybody when I'm asked that question. And it's amazing how often I'm asked that question. And I think at the same time, it's not that amazing. I'm sure that I'm putting something out there in the universe that gives that space to have that question be asked, because I say what I do. I tell people, if you're having a bad day and things aren't going your way, and again, you're right to what you were just saying, Shawn, you have to be somewhat self-reflective and self-aware. I always tell people, pick up the phone, call somebody and just say, I need to be of service. I need to do something today, and you're first on my list. What can I do for you today? How can I help you? How can I be, how can I take something off your plate? Can I bring you lunch? Can I bring you a cup of coffee? I want to do something because I'm looking to create a shift for myself. And I will tell you, it's amazing to the person. I get calls back saying, that was the best advice I've ever had. It completely shifted where I needed to go and where I needed to focus. And I'm a big fan of servant leadership, the concept of leading by providing service.
Right.
And those are the kinds of things, if you have an awareness, you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't have the answer, for folks who are firm believers in God and especially in the Christian faith, the big thing is when you're at a point where you don't have the answers, because the reality is you don't have all the answers. You have to surrender. You have to give in order to get help to some degree. You have to acknowledge, I don't know what to do next. Can you give me a sign? We're asking for a shift to be presented to us as well, or asking for something to occur so that we can create a shift, right? We're looking for a sign so that we can create a shift in our thinking and our presence. And I think, that's self-awareness. If we can, thank you, Laura. If we can get outside of ourselves, right? That's what it's all about. And I think when you provide a service, when you give to somebody else, and your perspective shifts, your soul opens up, your heart shifts, and you start to fill that back up.
And that's, for some people, it sounds corny or whatever have you, but the truth of the matter is, when you give, you literally do receive. I mean, now if you give and don't feel like you get anything back from it emotionally or spiritually, I would say, in the interest of hope, I would say try one more time. And then if the same feeling or lack thereof occurs, get help quick.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's definitely, that's always the fallback, right? Get support, get help. And I also say that if you're providing service and you're not getting something out of it, I'm going to assert that that's because your expectation of providing service is different than the receiver of that support, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes people do it and it's not altruistic. Sometimes people, hey, I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to want a favor when I'm done.
What's in it for me? Yeah.
What's in it for me, right? What do they call that? That's the radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Exactly.
Right. And so that could be a contributing factor. So that's where the self-reflection, self-awareness has to come in. Am I doing this because I really want to give and I really want to provide service and I really want to create a shift for myself? Or am I doing it in order to? Because anytime you throw an in order to, that's a condition that you're putting on an activity that, that alters the intent. Right.
Right.
If I tell you,
feel. No, go ahead.
Good. I was saying, if I'm telling you, hey, I'm doing this in order to, because I want to, right? you're throwing a clarification on there, or a consideration on there. That's because what if it doesn't follow? Like, what if you don't get back what you're expecting, right? You put a condition on it. I'm doing this in order to, puts a condition on it. So if it doesn't happen, well, then your effort is wasted. So you have to give out of pure giving. You have to serve out of pure service. The give back, what we get back out of all that is perspective and shift. It doesn't necessarily, it's not a direct, I'm going to give to you and you're going to give this back to me. It's not direct. By the way, some people in sales, that's all they think about. I remember, right? That's some people, hey, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to connect you to, and then, if you guys do a deal, cut me in on the deal. Like that's a different mentality. I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's a different mentality.
I just thought of two things as you're saying that, as we're kind of weaving our way around here, which is because I thought to myself, what should happen is, as you give to that person, the look on their face, once you've done that for them, once the deed is done, that should be reward enough for you. But your consciousness in some cases has to be even higher, because sometimes you will come from the right place and offer something to someone. And if they're the type of person that would only do something, in exchange for something in return, people like that can have a hard time expressing any kind of gratitude for what you've done. And if your consciousness is not high enough, you can walk away going, man, that person didn't even look grateful. They didn't say thank you. And it can rub you the wrong way. But when your consciousness is at the highest place, you're like, you know what? I offer that for them, but it was as much for me. And I know that what I did was right, and lesson learned. And that's the end of that.
Simple things. When you walk out of a building, you hold the door open for somebody. If they don't say thank you, what are you going to do? Stop holding the door open for folks? Just because you don't, right?
I know that used to bother me.
You wave somebody in traffic and like, hey, I don't get a thank you or a wave or anything. Exactly. Are you doing it for the wave? Are you doing it for the acknowledgement? Were you holding the door open so that you could be acknowledged for doing something humane? It's sort of like,
we can't judge people if that's where they are too, because like I said, I used to feel like when I would, especially when I worked in like corporate jobs, you're like in these big buildings and stuff, and I hold the door open for somebody. In my head, first of all, I would be like, to myself, I'm like, this is not the intro to the Jeffersons where George and Wheezy are walking into the building. I don't work here for you. I held the door open for you and you don't even say anything. And then it would bother me. Then I went from that to actually letting people know. I wouldn't accost them, but I would open the door, and if they said nothing, I'd go, you're welcome. Or if I said hello and somebody didn't say hello back, I'd be like, hello. And then I went from that to, okay. And so if somebody else is in that space, the former versus the latter, we can't judge them either. We're all the sum total of our experience. And that goes all the way back around to our original point, which is all connected here, which is all those things have everything to do with the amount of self-care that you give to yourself and that which you allow other people to give to themselves.
Yeah. I don't want to finish that. I don't want that thought, that other thing to
go. No, have to go away from there.
I get what you're saying, and I know a lot of people who feel that way. Like, oh, hey, a little wave would be nice, And by the way, on occasion, I catch myself doing it too,
Yeah.
But here's the thing: if your focus is, I'm going to do something nice for somebody else, and it's what I'm providing, this is who I am. My true nature, my true self is somebody who gives. How another person receives it, I can't take responsibility for, right?
You have nothing to do with that.
And it's very possible, I like how my hand disappears in the screen. It's very possible that you may not see it, but you may have shifted their universe to the nth degree that they catch it unconsciously after the fact down the road.
And you don't know what they're going through.
And you don't know. Because, by the way, we don't know. I have no idea what my children are going to create in the world.
Exactly.
I don't have to have a plan for what my kids are going to create. They may create something magnificent after I'm gone. There are a lot of things in our life that could occur after the moment passes that we don't have any control over. So rather than look for a direct result in giving, know that the ripple effect of the give is what the universe is made up of, right? If we hold the door open and somebody doesn't say thank you in the moment, it doesn't mean we stop holding the door open. We continue to hold the door open because that's who we are and that's what we do. And that is going to have an impact down the road. And I may never see it. Mahatma Gandhi was always about, like, I'm standing for something to occur today that could occur well past my lifetime. That's true service, right? And so at the end of the day, again, we need to look at that for ourselves as well. That self-care is such an important thing for us to do. I'm going to take an hour and I'm going to binge watch a TV show or whatever, because I want the separation. I want to take care of myself, and I'm going to do this. And by the way, when I'm done watching that hour, I may or may not go back to work, or I may or may not fall asleep, or I may or may not, whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Self-awareness of, I may not see the direct result from what I'm doing. I just know that in the grand scheme of things, when I'm focused on taking care of myself, and in a way, we all are doing it. In a way, we're all doing it. It's not like hedonistic, but we all are pursuing self-care to some degree.
Yeah.
Self-fulfillment. Yeah. So it's just a matter of knowing that, it is critical to have that awareness and to create that self-fulfillment, because we don't know what the future holds. And honestly, I'm still looking at, what is it I'm looking forward to? I will tell you, for me, the answer to the question for me is, I'm looking forward to finding how many more people I can serve in this mentor, guidance, teaching, support role that I get so much value from. Yeah. I get so much from giving of myself.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. How many more people can we be of service to? Like, how many more people? You always hear me say the quote from the great Muhammad Ali, which I posted today, as a matter of fact.
I mentioned it yesterday in my conversation, by the way. Yes, I love it.
Because someone posted, there's a Virgin Islands group called I used to live on St. Thomas, or live in the U.S. Virgin Islands or something. And there was an article in the Virgin Islands Daily News from 1968 where our family business there was a dedication event, and I just posted how my grandparents were the embodiment of the words of the great Muhammad Ali, which is that service to others is the rent you pay for your room on earth. We don't always do this when it's just us, and I don't know if I've asked you here before. I may have. I'll answer the question and then ask it of you. I think I gave an example already, which is, a belief that, our ability to change the world is based on our willingness or ability to change ourselves. And, one of the beliefs I used to have was, at least one of them was just that. If you do something nice, it's respectful to say thank you. It's respectful to wave as you let somebody, give them the right of way when you're driving or something like that. I still appreciate that. I still notice when it's not done. But I don't need it, because if I need it, it used to be that I had to have it because I'd have a comment almost all the time. But I miss out on what is there for me in the grand scheme if I'm focused on what I'm not getting from that fellow human being in the given moment. That's my one example. What might one be for you?
I think I used to believe that we had, each of us had to have clarity every step of the way of our place, our future pathway. Mm-hmm. I'm living in it right now. I'm like immersed in it right now, that I don't think you have to have a clear path. I think that your search for clarity is the journey, right? It is it is the end game. I don't think you have to know the end game. I think the search for it is the end game. The journey that we're on is ultimately where we're going. And I think that that's new revelation for me, because, I'm the guy that has all the answers. I'm the guy that knows things. I'm the guy that, is a leader. And yet, so I thought I had to have all the answers. And now I realize I don't have them, and I don't have to have them. I think that's,
and sometimes not having them enhances your ability to lead, your honesty about those things, at least in a selective manner. As we get ready to close out, I want to give some acknowledgement here. I want to share one organization that is a friend of the show, which is the Special Needs Network. You and I were both invited to. I was able to attend. You were not. The sneak preview of a facility that they have in Los Angeles called CAD, which is the Center for Autism and I'm butchering the words.
Development, right? Is it?
It has. I think it's autism development or delay or something of that sort. But it is a phenomenal facility. The founder of Special Needs Network is our friend Ariva Martin, who's been a guest on the show as well. And I told her that what she has done, very much like Jessica Pate has done with We Are Brave Together, is it's one thing to have this great idea to say that I'd like to create this entity that helps these people do this thing or that thing, but to actually get it off the ground. They've got multiple locations around the Los Angeles area, and the CAD, that location has, when you first walk in, there's a row of desks with Apple desktops. And those are for parents whose children are usually in the offices all along those walls where therapy takes place. And then beyond, just before that, there's a gymnasium for sensory needs. And then past that, there's a kitchen, and then like a bedroom or an apartment where life skills are taught as well. And they actually have 2 or 3 locations where there's a studio set up for podcasts to be created for children that may have skills for those types of things. So it's an amazing organization. The other thing I want to also share with everyone is encourage you to, if you're looking at shoes for anyone that may have physical challenges, our good friends at Billy Footwear, they have a fall sale that is taking place. And in addition to that, if you utilize the link that will be up in just a second, you will get an additional 10% off. They are an amazing organization. They've been great friends of the show, and we look forward to doing more great work with Billy Footwear. And then in addition to that, we mentioned earlier our men's group, The Den. We meet every other Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific on Zoom. The next gathering is this Sunday, actually. And, we encourage you to join us. We have conversations that may or may not take place in most cases with men. And as we just mentioned, just like self-care is important, people need to be reminded that they're not alone in the room in which they stand.
Yeah. Well, and since we're on it, I did 2 organizations that I sit on their boards. One is, we've mentioned already, We Are Brave Together. We just completed last weekend our 5K event, fundraising event. And by the way, we're still raising money up until October 15th. We are just within a hair of our $40,000 goal. So thank you so much. If you're so inclined and want to contribute, again, all that money goes towards retreats, subsidizing the retreats for caregiving moms. They do retreats all over the country. It's a phenomenal organization. And the second one I'm excited about, we had Brett Lieberman on the show not that long ago to talk about the Good Karma Festival. So his organization, Yes I Can, Unity Through Music and Education, takes young adults with disabilities, and that's what they call them, their disabilities, their challenges, and they train them on how to be prepared for careers in the entertainment industry. That's film, television, and music, primarily music, but film and television as well. And they've placed some young folks with developmental disabilities in positions, paid positions now at Paramount Studios and many of these other great entertainment facilities around Southern California. And so if you go to the goodkarmafestival.org, you'll see it's coming up in November live, and it'll be live streamed as well. So great organizations that are serving our community and great people that are running those organizations. We're blessed to be part of those communities. And I know we've just about reached our hour. Thank you for putting that up there, Shawn. There you go. Yep. Oops, I took it down. That's yikunity.org. We're grateful to be part of this. We don't even know what episode. We did this about 3.5 years ago with the idea that, we'll mention your event as well, with the idea that we wanted to shine a spotlight on those folks that were serving the community. And we also, in our roles as financial educators, provide a lot of financial support to families with special needs as well as neurotypical families. Shawn is hosting an event. It's on the screen. There's an Eventbrite. It's a free event for you to get some great financial information. We'll have those in the show notes as well. But this is our service. This is how we decided to have an impact on a community that was very near and dear to us, and of which we are members. These kinds of organizations, these kinds of events. So I'm grateful. Empathy and love is what I say all the time. To have some empathy for the folks around you. You have no idea what they're going through. When you hold the door open and they don't say thank you, you don't know what they're going through. So have some empathy and look at the world through the lenses of love, and the world looks so much better, so much prettier, so much nicer. And on that note, I'm going to throw it to you, Shawn, to close this out.
Yes, I just want to say one more thing about the Eventbrite event, which is on October, I guess, a week from this Saturday. I don't even know what date that is off the top of my head. But we're going to have Genevieve Grubel, who is an estate planning attorney with us, a specialty in serving special needs families. Do you know the difference between a will and a trust? When is the special needs applicable? There's other alternatives to conservatorship. We will also then have Nicole, who's been a guest on the show, and is an expert in both probate and real estate as well. When is the best time to buy a home? When do you know when you're prepared to buy a home? How do you maximize the value of the home? And then I'll be covering the stuff that Brian and I talk about all the time, which is the financial, just the basics in terms of protection against loss of income, debt elimination, maximizing getting the right type and the right amount of life insurance, and then your mindset around money as well. And again, to be able to do this, we're just so grateful and so thankful. To everyone within the sound of our voice, just remember, questions are more powerful than statements. And if you're watching this, we love you.
See you next time.